All right, everybody, how you doing? I'm Steve from Halborn. I have my liquid death. Does anybody else think that this is beer when you look at it, and it's actually water? Maybe just to hang out and see, like, oh, I don't drink beer, but I look like I do. It's good, though. All right, we're going to go into talking about risks. And, you know, the title for this is The Melting Block, How Cross-Chain Security Mistakes Can Expose to Risk. But I actually think a better title for it is Comparing the Risks Between the Great Financial Crisis and Liquid Staking Derivatives, because that's the topic on here. So it's the big stake. And you know, we'll get into the details on that in a moment. But I want to start off with a quote from Jurassic Park. Anybody see Jurassic Park before? Yeah, it's great. One of my favorite movies. Ian Malcolm, played by Jeff Bloomberg, he says, "Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether they could that they didn't stop to think if they should." And he's a chaos theory mathematician. So you'll see why that's relevant in just a moment. But when we talk about risks on staking, you know, there's usually two ways to look at it: the risks to protocol and then the risk to capital. And to protocol, it's things like MEV extraction, censorship, cartelization. And we're not going to be talking about that though, because that's there's like 3 or 4 other talks on that here at ETH Denver. We're actually going to talk about the risks to capital, the funds, and this is something that nobody really talks about other than like getting hacks and stuff. We're going to look at it in a different way. So this presentation stars 2 individuals that we're going to go through, and they have 2 different perspectives. We have the degen, who's going to look at the investment side of it and YOLOing and getting as much APY as possible, and the normie, who's a little hesitant and looks at the risks involved. So let's start with the degen. So starting with staking, what do you get from staking? You lock your native asset in a network, and you support the consensus, and you get rewards for it, staking rewards. Let's go one level now, liquid staking. You create a derivative of that locked asset that's earning yield, and then you take that and you can use it for other DeFi protocols, earning rewards from that as well. Then you've ascended, cross-chain liquid staking. Now we have another layer. You mint a wrapped derivative of that previous derivative that's earning the yield already into another protocol, which usually is done through a bridge, and that is going to be burned or locked on the native chain, mint the other one, while that other native asset on the other chain is still earning rewards from the consensus rewards. Wow, so much yield. The normie says, that looks like double free money, right? Double free money, that's right, normie. What's the risk though? What's the gotcha? So let's start again at staking. Well, one risk that we look at, to the capital, is slashing. The operators, they have penalties with it. If it's not usually up, then you can, if you have a node failure or validator failure, you can lose funds from that on some protocols. Hacks and bugs. I mean, being at Halborn, we know all about this all the time. It's what we do. No guarantee that code is developed error-free, and that can have inherent risks to capital. And also, unproven and yet to be written code. Now, this was a screenshot from late last year. It's actually in the Ethereum ETH1 to ETH2 merge. I blocked out the names for it. But it's the 2 developers discussing concerns they have about withdrawing. And really, basically, what they're saying is, don't worry, we'll figure out a secure way to take the funds out later because people want their yield now. So just go ahead and merge that code. And that's, okay. Well, I mean, they did figure it out. Shanghai's coming out and stuff. That's great. But that's like a risk, too. Like, I mean, shouldn't we go through, think about that before we put, billions of dollars in it? Okay, medium risk. That's not too bad. I guess a medium risk. Let's go to liquid staking now. So all of that, another layer on it. First, you have the price risk that the exchange of the liquid staking derivative, something like staked ETH, is lower than the inherent value. That can be done from withdrawal restrictions or high volatility. And then you have adoption risk. Now, ETH2 doesn't really have that problem, but other staking chains may, where the value of that liquid staking derivative based on the native asset, if it does not get enough adoption, it could be problematic, and that could cause a financial explosion. Again, hacks and bugs. Again, the other layer that happens. So, all right, now we have a higher risk. So what the F about? What about cross-chain liquid staking? Another layer around that. So we've taken all of that risk from before and let's put another wrapper around that. And first, what is it? This is the process when you have the wrap derivative based on the liquid staking derivative that's minted by the bridge, integrated on there, like a vault. Always, the cross-chain bridges, unless you're something like Thorchain, which is like native, held in the vaults there. So you see up there, we have these three layers of derivatives, and all of them earning rewards. Staking rewards, yield farming rewards, and then DeFi protocols that you invest on the other chain over there. The degen is very, very turned on by this one. He must know, how do I do this even more? So it's very hard to explain. It's better to visualize it. So what exactly is going on here? We have our proof of stake chain with the native asset. Okay, you locked it inside consensus, and you're getting the the reward, validator rewards. Then you go through a staking contract, or to make your derivative, your staked ETH or staked whatever it is, and that's now done through things like Lido or whatever. So now you have that wrapped one, and you can invest that on the native chain if you want, or you can go across the bridge and go into another one. Let that there, burn it there, mint it here, and that's done with like wrap tokens, smart contracts, and so on. You get your wrap staked ETH, and then you can invest it in DeFi protocols. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the bridge as well. How often do smart contracts get hacked? A lot. So if any of those components fail, then you're disconnected from that native asset, and you won't be able to unwind your position. You could lose everything. Ludicrous risk right now. So this is our third character on here. Anybody see The Big Short before? Yeah, a couple of you guys? Yeah, okay. Big Short. So Big Short is a movie about Michael Burry, played by Christian Bale here. I actually know Michael Burry. He lives, he has a house in South Beach. We talk about this a lot. And it's a great movie for investors. It shows like what happened during the great financial crisis of 2007, 2008. So quick recap on what happened during that financial meltdown. It was mostly caused by a derivatives, mortgage-backed securities, and CDOs, which are collateral debt obligations. Both of them really were contributing factors to this humongous impact that just changed the way finance is done today. So the steps involved, what happened first is like subprime mortgage lending with adjustable rate loans. What that means is giving house loans to people that should not have house loans, and hey, it's cheap now, but in 5 years it's going to go way up, the interest rate. Then they took all of those loans, put them and resold them as a derivative to investors called CDOs. And then all of a sudden the mortgage loans began to default. And that was because, well, people really got in over their heads from such easy, loose lending. So the underlying started to become at risk. So the investment pools of all those CDOs and the MBSs, they lost value, they went down, the main collateral. And people started to panic, investors and banks. And they said, okay, well, we need to unwind our position. Let me go back, if you look at the liquid staking, let me go and put my wrap token back in there, redeem it for the staked one through the bridge, and then take the bridge and go back and get my native asset out. So the version of that for them was, I need to go and cash in my CDO and just sell that so I can get my money back before it goes down. So they started to deleverage all of that, but they couldn't because it was a cascading effect, a death spiral that the liquidity that was withdrawn and all the extreme risk that was there was too much counterparty risk for the people that sold it. I know that's purple and hard to read it, but it says the liquidity withdrawn by dealers due to extreme risk made exiting that position and getting your collateral impossible. There was no liquidity left, and the people that had it didn't want to give it up. Financial meltdown. That's what happened at the end. So why is it similar? Why am I even talking about this? This isn't FUD, because there's amazing things being built here, but we need to think about sometimes, like, what exactly are we doing for a lot of this, because we all want this to succeed, and there's a lot of risk here that's very short-sighted and short-term. So part of the great financial crisis is subprime mortgages, that was unproven collateral, adjustable rate loans led to volatility, MBS CDO derivatives, margin by the institutions with leverage, and then really deep positioning that couldn't unwind. Here's some of the similarities in DeFi. You have unproven collateral, that's being built, developers here in Biddling, staking protocol, volatility, cryptos is, volatile. Derivative assets, so your liquid staking derivatives, wrapped, margin use on retail, and then complexity. Bridges and cross-chain is complex. We audit it all the time. It's amazing what these developers can do, what they can write and how they can connect them. But with complexity comes risk to security. Complexity and security are the enemies of each other. So how did it all end back then? You had, after all of the liquidity outflow and the shrinking capital and the collateral, just the locking out, the banks there, they got bailed out. The Federal Reserve Bank stepped in, and they loaned and injected $700 billion. They printed it, and to finance the portfolios of all these failing banks, and it sucked. But they came in and they bailed them out to get things back on track, and then they implemented a lot of compliance and regulation, like SOX and reporting details, and there's a lot of changes to the way they do it. The standards were looser before. So they implemented that, and ever since then we've been sucking at the Federal Reserve Bank's teeth since then, unfortunately. 3 months later, the first Bitcoin block was actually mined too, right after all that. It was kind of it started it all, the anti-Fed. But where are we going with that? So who would bail out DeFi? So that's something to think about. Sam Bankman-Fried's not here to bail us out anymore, right? Yeah, just kidding. Yeah. So, just wanted to thank you guys. I know ran through that. Hope you thought it was valuable. And if there's any questions out there right now, have a few minutes left to go on. No? This isn't a doom call. It's like, this is very, just be aware of things as an investor or as a builder, because they can cascade to systemic risk, and nobody wants that. Yes. He has a microphone over there. He'll bring it for you. He's getting a microphone.
Given this risk, what is the best path forward? Is it for people to just understand the amount of risk they have, or is it, if you were to regulate, what would you regulate? Like, what's the sort of beginning of a solution?
Yeah, regulation can be good and bad. I'm not pushing for over-regulation. I think it's not offering something that's so short-sighted, like APY and yield that's just ridiculous amounts that can't sustain itself. We saw that many times with Celsius and BlockFi and even the algorithmic stablecoins. Like, once the yield went down a little bit for Terra, Luna just got collapsed. There's not enough liquidity there. So it's doing things sensibly and not being so greedy, I think, is what it is. There's a lot of greed in DeFi. And when you look at staking, which is an amazing way of doing consensus, when you make a liquid staking derivative, the difference between proof of work and proof of stake. Proof of work, you're providing hash power. You're sacrificing electricity, and paying for that to secure the network. With stake, you're sacrificing your ability to use the stake, the asset. You're locking it in a validator, and that's your investment to help, build the network. So you're kind of cheating in a way by when you're doing liquid staking. It's just like, especially if there's no margin or collateral around that. Like you can take USD and have a 70% margin collateral rate, and use other things that invest it, but then you get a margin call. So that's the equivalent of this. There's no margin needed. The margin call is you just lose your funds completely. So do we need to think about and just look at some of the mistakes made in the past and not repeat them in what we're doing right now? Yep. Other questions? Okay. All right, guys. Hope you all enjoyed that. We'll be at the booth right over there, Halborn. Come say hi. I think that's, there's a lot to talk about, but we do cybersecurity. Thank you. Come say hi there. We got some swag over there too.